Hello, welcome to the program. I'm Gigi Koplak. Today on Pleasantville Connects to the Visual Arts, my guest is Corinne Lapin-Cohen. She is an artist, and we're going to have a discussion about her art. Hey, Corey.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. I feel like I knew about you as an artist from your botanicals, but I feel like I knew about you even before that here in Westchester County. Did you do something?
I used to train horses.
Wow.
I had a horse farm and trained kids, adults, boarding in Golden's Bridge.
I think that's it. You had a reputation here for
Sort of.
No, a good one, a good reputation. There was all. So then, what happened? You went into botanical, or
I was ill,
Okay.
and I sold the horses, and my boarders went elsewhere.
Okay.
And I thought, well, I've always been a gardener. And so I was a naturalist with Audubon, and I wrote programs for kids and took them on nature walks. I was a naturalist with Newcastle.
Didn't you get a degree, or did you get a degree in it?
Yeah, I had a degree in gardening from the New York Botanical Gardens. And so the logic was, oh, well, now maybe I can learn how to paint.
Oh, that's very brave.
Well, I was in college. I was a history of fine arts and practical arts major.
Okay.
So it was sort of like going back to some of my roots.
Well, it was in you.
It was in. It's always art has always been in me.
Yeah, I think that's true about most people. Somehow it's just you don't just horses to art, you know. Although there's an art in horses also. I mean, really. So
You know, a lot of botanical artists were involved with horses, or
Really?
have horses, or ride and stuff. So
That's
I was
interesting.
surprised. It's an unusual connection,
yeah,
seemingly.
well, maybe nature and is there a discipline in both of them?
There is,
Okay.
especially with botanical art. There are rules and there are approaches.
Okay.
And so I think that maybe that at that point was attractive to me.
Okay. So what happens first, though? Do you take a class in botanicals and they say to you, these are the rules, or?
I took a class knowing not what the rules were.
Okay.
I took a class simultaneously in drawing and in painting.
Okay.
And didn't work so great, but I learned quickly.
Okay.
And I didn't know that it was a whole program, but then I thought, well, why not? And so I just enrolled and took a lot of drawing. Drawing was my passion at the time. And then I went into the watercolor of it. And silver point, metal point. And it was about 2 years of study, but I took a lot of classes at the same time. Mm-hmm. And then I graduated from that, and they asked me to teach. So I was teaching at the New York Botanical Gardens.
Oh, no kidding.
For a couple of
wow.
years.
Wow, so you must have been terrific. I want to look at some of the work as we're talking about it. I think you mentioned that your work is about the cycle of life. So if we look at, for instance, ginkgo biloba. I don't know why I can't get that second part of that word.
It's actually what people make. It's made into a medicine.
I know, I know.
You use it to help your mind. Maybe you should take it.
Hey, I'm not arguing about that.
We all need it.
So when you do, every botanical artist, if I get this right, stop me if I'm wrong, has a certain way of portraying the flower.
There are a few rules. The plant has to be portrayed as a botanist could understand it.
Okay.
So whatever the vein conformation, whatever the seeds look like, whatever the flower looks like, right down to the pistils and stamens, the numbers, the type of botanical structure, has to be right.
Okay.
It should be life-size.
Okay.
I never work from photographs. I only work from material. It starts alive, and then it shrivels, and then I'm working from the specimen.
So there's your cycle of life.
Yes.
Yes. Okay,
and because I had been
interesting.
ill, I was really interested in the continuum of life.
Okay.
So most of my botanicals have either the flower, the fruit, the seeds, or the seeds, or something that makes you feel that it's a continuation. A guarantee of the future.
Okay.
That's what I needed at that point.
Okay.
But because I was a gardener, it was the beauty that fascinated me. But botanical art's a marriage of art and science.
Okay.
You have to stay true to the science, or it's not botanical, it's a flower painting.
Right.
And therein is the difference. You have to be 100% accurate for size and color. Arrangement of leaves on a stem, of petals on a flower.
Okay.
Those you can't deviate.
But can you choose not to put the seed in, for instance?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's
you
where
can do a portrait of a flower.
Okay.
And you
Okay.
don't have to show all
Okay.
of the rest.
And so that's where your work is different than other people's work.
And it's
because-
not always consistent. I don't always have everything. I don't always have the parts in there.
Like, for instance, purple hydrangea, which we have. Is that just the flower there then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you look at some of them, some of the roses just have the flower.
Okay.
Because that was, to me, the beauty of the life of the plant.
Right. Right. What about coconut, though?
Well, coconut is the sprouting coconut.
Okay.
That is, the seed is inside that shell.
Okay.
And
I never knew that. I never thought
Yeah.
about that in a coconut.
you know, in the supermarket, you see a coconut and it's like that big and hairy.
Right.
But it's inside of that protective nut.
Yeah.
And those are the things you see on the beach, the roots coming out of that nut,
Oh.
which the seed is what nourishes the plant.
Okay.
And the coconut has that tall, sprouting leaf structure. And as it becomes a tree, it becomes the stem.
Right.
So that is the life. That is it. That is the ultimate.
Right. So every one of those seeds is going to be another tree, another coconut tree.
Yeah.
So you learn an awful lot, I'm sure, while you're doing this.
Well, for me, I think that was part of the fascination with this whole study.
Oh, sure.
Which plants have medicinal purposes, which are food sources, which are economically useful for clothing, fibers, whatever.
I'm interested, did you change your garden while you were doing this? Because you said you were a gardener. Did it affect
You know, it did. My garden became a color wheel. And it
Okay.
became a palette of juxtaposing color.
Interesting.
So my garden became more
Another
artistic.
art project. Yeah.
It was an absolute art project.
Yeah.
I was aware of so much more.
Yeah, well, so talk a little bit about pumpkin now, the painting that you did of pumpkin, because I think that one truly shows the whole...
Pumpkin is an interesting, there's a little story.
Okay.
Pumpkin, I did when I was very sick, and I barely had energy to work. But I was taking some medication that could counteract some of the side effects of the chemotherapy. And the pumpkin was this first piece that wasn't smaller and delicate. It became this, I am here and I am strong. And it's very robust, and it has the seeds, and it has the flower, and it has the buds, and all the wild leaves that provide the nutrition for it. So I entered it into a competition, and the judge thought that it was too nerve-wracking. It bothered him. It was so energizing. It was disturbed.
Really?
But
did he tell you that?
No, I found out.
Okay.
But it was accepted in the next competition and was at the Albany Museum of Art for quite a while.
Cool. So is that life size?
Yeah.
So that's a big...
It's a French pumpkin. It's huge. I mean, it was a big pumpkin with vines and leaves and.
Well, that must be fabulous.
Yeah. Every year it ends up being shown someplace in a window or in a yeah.
And it's a watercolor.
It is all watercolor. My botanicals are all watercolors.
Yeah. Okay. Do you do sketching also, though? Do you show your? I'm sure you do sketching.
I do.
Because you must sketch first.
You have to draw. I need to draw a full drawing, a full tonal drawing, so I know exactly where all the darks, where all the lights are going to be, and what the finished composition is going to be.
Okay. And the same size?
Yes.
You don't do a little maquette?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I do full-size tonal drawings, and they take a very long time. So, it might be sketched up and then a full drawing, and then the drawing is transferred on a light box to watercolor paper, and then I begin the painting process.
What does that mean, transferred to a light box?
Okay, a light box...
I know what a light box is. But
All right,
you must have a very big one.
I have a very big light box.
Okay.
You can also use a window,
Right.
a door.
Right. I have a glass table.
A glass
but I put a light
table.
underneath.
Exactly.
Yeah, so,
Exactly.
okay. But I just, to me, a light box was smaller, but you must have a huge
Well,
one.
it could be anything depending. But I do have a very big one,
okay.
and I carefully move the paper if I need to.
Okay, okay, okay. So it's a real, it's a love and a discipline, and yet a drawing, and it's everything. Well, botanicals.
And then painting watercolor. There are no whites. All highlights are, if you're leaving it, if it's white highlight, it's the white of the paper. So you're starting with the darks or the darker areas, and you are putting light layers of paint down until you get the form built up.
Right.
And so you can layer many, many colors. Although it looks orange, there's probably blues and cerulean and violet and all these other light layers of the color under it, which makes for a very more glowing painting.
It's
optical mixing.
It's going to be interesting as we go along with your work and see it, how that way of painting comes through. Well, you know, in other ways.
That's how I've learned to paint.
Okay.
Through this optical mixing, where I'll put down a layer of blue and a layer of yellow, but you will see green. Mm-hmm. I haven't mixed on a palette the green.
Interesting.
And so I can add several blue, and it never gets muddy that way.
Right.
People are always afraid of mud.
Well, so you want to know something?
Some mud is good. I love mud in the right place.
I call it muck. You know, if you look at any great work, it has some muck in it.
It needs it.
It needs it because you need, otherwise, like a bright red looks awful next to, you know, something that's bright. So in order to bring it forward,
and
muck.
Also red in the shadow is muck.
So the last three pictures that we have, is that you're winding down, are you, from doing botanicals? This daylily and the...
Those last three were commissioned by a woman.
Okay.
Actually, it was the woman's grandmother who commissioned them for her birthday. It was a wonderful birthday gift. Yeah. Those are the last three botanicals I've actually done, other than a couple of metal point pieces after.
So did she?
And they took me over a year to do those three pieces.
Did they ask for those particular flowers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a discussion because they were a commission.
Right.
We had a discussion as to what her favorite plants were.
Okay.
And then we narrowed those from that list. She and I talked about what three would look well together and what would work as a garden. Okay. We didn't want it to look like three painting. They're big. They're full sheets of watercolor, 22 by 30, without a frame.
Okay.
And so you can imagine, you didn't want them to look harsh, and you wanted flowers. It was a garden.
Yeah.
So
that's nice.
We worked together. And as I would sketch the piece and do a drawing, we would be doing this via email, and I would show it to her.
Oh,
and
you're very brave to do that.
Well, it's a commission, so if what was in her head and what was in my head didn't match, no go.
I know, that's so hard. That's why it took you a year.
Well, she was great. She was great to work with, and I always work on commissions that way.
Okay.
I do a sketch. If you like it, then I'll do a full drawing. If we go from there, then I'll send you a color study.
Okay.
And I get your approval all the way.
Wow.
And she came to the studio to see the daylily, the first one, and she saw the first color study. And she started crying.
Oh.
She was so thrilled. And I thought, this is good. Okay, we're on a roll now.
Crying is good,
and she didn't see any of the rest finished, until I brought them to her home.
That's so
nice.
nice.
It was such an exciting time.
Yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah, they were fun. They were such fun to do. But over a year on three. And remember, I don't work from photographs. Right. So I had to rush and do, while the season was there, all the drawing and all the color notes.
Right.
Then I could go back and put it all together.
So how long does a flower last, really? Not more than 3 days.
The daylily lasts 1 day.
Oh, that's true.
They open, they close.
That's it. Yeah, that's true.
The hydrangeas were easier because they could dry.
Right.
And I was doing, those colors.
Right.
And the black-eyed Susans, well, the Rudbeckia, they bloom on and off all the time,
Yeah.
you know, so I was okay with that.
Okay. But now you changed totally.
I did. I totally changed. And that, two things happened. My husband retired.
Okay, that's a big thing.
And that was a big thing. And we realized I could not be working in the house at the same moment that he was puttering around in too close a vicinity. I was so used to quiet.
Yeah, it's a whole other world.
In a whole other world. So we built a studio. He insisted. I think he just wanted me out of the house. So we built a fabulous studio for me above the garage, but it's separate building.
Okay.
And my work went from botanical sized to canvas sized. Big space, big paintings.
Okay, and you switched now. You went from watercolor
to oil.
To oil. Which I always found when I was teaching, that was a really hard transition, because it's a different way of approaching dark to light or light to dark. But you had this way of painting that you brought into your oils, which is so interesting, this layering.
So my oils are painted the same way that my watercolors are.
Yeah.
I start with light layers, thin layers, and I don't think of color as dark or light, because when it's thin, they're all light.
Well, they're all transparent?
Yes,
would you
they're
say?
all transparent.
Okay.
So, yes, that would be better.
Okay.
So, because I'm not painting realistically, I don't have to give the same form to things necessarily that I do to the, because some of the paintings have great form.
You did a whole 180 here. You went from this tight, disciplined kind of rule thing to totally
whatever, right?
To something.
A lot of the paintings, though, are very disciplined and very clean edge.
Which would you say now? Because we could show it as we're talking. How would you? Which one would you describe?
Well, when we get to it, I'll show it to you.
Okay.
I'll jump back to that.
All right. So do you want to start with this first one that's called Sign and Celebrate?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was done because my husband had just had hernia surgery.
Okay.
And I was up worrying about him. It was very simple, very direct, no complications. But I was thinking, how many people get surgically cut open? Not necessarily laparoscopically, but surgery has cuts, scars, and stitching. And it made me start thinking about that. And because I had had cancer, it made me remember the scarring emotionally and physically. And somehow it made me think of this image on canvas. There's where the 180 started.
Yeah, we don't know how or why, but you had this image.
Subconsciously, it rose to the surface, as with
And you
most
had to
things.
paint it. You had to get it on canvas.
I had to get it on canvas. There was a show coming up for the Katona Museum Artists Association at the Katona Library, and I thought, oh, this would be really good. So I took out this canvas. Why? I had to go get the canvas.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you have canvas? Right. And did you have paints? Or did
I did not have paints.
So you had, yeah.
But this particular piece was actually first done with some charcoal and then watercolor, and it couldn't get it right, so I got the paint. Now, I don't use black paint, so here's where my botanical came back in. I had a green and a red that I know make this rich black, because green is a thing in botanicals, and how do you make it darker and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So I knew that these two colors would give me this rich black. So that's what started this whole scar and then stitching. And so here are all the stitches.
So are there actually thread coming through this canvas? Did you cut it?
Thread.
You cut this canvas?
This canvas was not cut. I wanted to, but I was afraid.
Okay.
I didn't know canvas yet.
Okay.
So I just really scarred it up and stitched it, and then cross-stitched it with various colored threads that represent the different kinds of cancers that people get.
Okay.
And that's why this was called if you've had cancer, sign and, if you have survived cancer, sign and celebrate. And I left gold pens hanging.
Oh.
And people signed all over, and it wasn't a matter.
Signed their name?
Yeah.
Okay.
They signed their names. Some wrote messages.
Okay.
And we've done this now, I guess, 2 years. And it just was not something to be morbid about. It was, you're here.
Well, you call it sign and celebrate, so that's interesting. Yeah.
So that started it. And then I started thinking of other friends who had been ill with cancers, and their children who had been ill, and people I knew. And so all of a sudden there was another canvas. And another one dealt with another friend of mine, and another friend who had a lymphoma, and one. I mean, it just kept going on. And these canvases were really about them.
Okay. Well, you have the one with the shattered
that was
reflection. That one came from a mirror that broke?
A mirror that broke, and she had stayed at the house several times, and all of a sudden, there it was.
Yeah,
and
so you really took an object from something else and made it into an art piece. Yes.
And that friend was the one that said to me, by the 6th canvas, I mean, it ended up a series of 12, but she said to me, this isn't about us. This is your journey.
Okay.
And that's when I realized, wow, I guess it is. But my journey with cancer had ended a long time ago.
Okay.
So it wasn't current. It wasn't healing me at the moment physically.
Okay.
But reflection upon what had happened.
All right.
And I realized, this is pretty exciting. You know, I survived all this, and let's get on with life.
Yeah, because then the next one is holding it together. And so, and the next after that is hope and celebrate. Well, and so now we're getting more up.
That's right. Even my grandson, at one of the exhibits, he looked at this series, and my son was a little nervous, I think, because it was like, what is this going to be about? My 6-year-old grandson looked at these and said, okay, so he's looking at 12 paintings, 14 paintings, he's going, I see you, so you're sick here, but here you were fine, but here you were sick, but this one looks like you're really fine, Gaga. And I was like, right, he gets it.
Oh,
it's not,
that's cute.
It wasn't frightening, it wasn't upsetting, it was really about, I guess, how your subconscious comes out and you don't even realize
And you don't realize until after.
It's just part of you.
Well, until after you've seen it.
That's
and if there it is, and you don't know why that image came to you, and then you go, oh, I know. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's
exactly
so exciting.
Right.
So exciting to me, you know. And the thread, though, that's an interesting one because it's so dark.
Except the thread now means so many things. Whether it's the thread of a conversation, it's the thread of something going on. The thread is black, but when you see the painting, it is this red and green. And you see black because you're seeing through the paint, but it's so lively, it glistens off. And this canvas is really cut. There's a big slash and a opening and folded back.
Now you're brave, huh, with the canvas.
Yeah, I cut a few since then. And I did that, and then I didn't know what to do. I just knew I had to cut the canvas, gouge it out. And then I started stitching it back together in silver thread, gold thread, copper thread, dyed red thread. And in these threads are beads of my grandmother's necklace. So they're gold beads, and it's it's almost like a piece of jewelry.
So there's the thread too, thread.
Yes, it's
another
the thread of my life.
Yeah.
It's the thread of my family. It's the continuum. And people that don't know what this piece is about look at it and say, oh, it's just so beautiful. And I'm thinking, yeah, and for me, where it was coming from was a dark place, but where it ends is a really bright place.
Right.
So, you know, we sort of don't know what's going on until I don't know what's going on until I see it. So for me, it's a real visual.
Yeah. So then you left the thread, did you? And you started just doing sort of color field paintings?
No, I still did a lot of work with the threads.
Okay.
They're not here, you know, to talk about right now, but I did keep the thread going because I like it.
Okay.
That's all I can say. I like it. I like the way it moves. A lot of the other paintings that came after this series have threads that are attached to the backs of the canvas that flow over it, and as you go
Come
by,
over from behind and come forward
yes,
over the
and they're
canvas.
not attached on the front.
Okay.
So or they may be tacked, but they still move, and as you go by or the wind goes,
Oh, okay.
they move. And
Kinetic
there's like
art, huh? Yeah.
on a
Cool.
color field
Okay.
of various colors, because I'm layering still.
Okay.
There's orange, there's green ones, there's, a whole bunch of them.
Right, well, these color field ones, right.
Yeah.
They feel a little like a landscape sort of, because you do have a
These next ones.
Right.
Right. There was like a series in between it.
Okay, maybe we don't have them in the right order or something.
No, they're not even here. I didn't even include them.
Okay.
How schizophrenic can I be?
Well, no, but I mean, what it means is that you're doing a lot of things at the same time, and these is what you've chosen to show with us, which is great. It's terrific. But these are the color field that look a little like a landscape.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those happened, I was at an exhibit at MoMA, and I noticed there was a different kind of paint being used.
Oh, okay. So now you're changing again.
So now I changed, and this is a vinyl polymer called flash paint.
Okay.
And it's also it's a water-based paint again, a little thicker than watercolor, but completely transparent.
Okay, interesting.
So these are really layered.
And you're calling them imaginings.
Yeah.
Is that what you think? Are you imagining things as you're painting, or?
I don't know. It just came out of my imagination.
Okay.
They weren't meant as landscapes, but I think when you look at things, you sort of try to make sense of it and put it into the context of what we know and what we recognize.
Right.
So they become landscapes because that's the closest thing to them.
Right.
That we would recognize. But they weren't meant as landscapes. They were like imaginings.
Yeah, but I
more about playing with the paint.
Okay.
And what would this color look like on top of this color?
Okay.
And because I didn't know, so it was like playing in a new sandbox again.
Okay.
It was like, what does this do? Oh, I like that. More of that one. Oh, not so good. Let's cover that with something.
Yeah. You know what? I wish we could cover all the rest we have, because you have some interesting ones. You have ones with bouncing balls, sort of, and then you have, I would really love to talk about the boxes that you've done, the packaging, or the last three that we have, which color, again, that idea of the color working back and forth. But I'm going to ask you to choose which ones you'd like to talk to.
I don't really know. Do we have enough time to run through it? No, we don't. Okay. So I want to mention the bouncing ball ones.
Okay.
Especially the last one, Finale.
Okay.
I don't know where that series came from, like these packages that I wrap up in boxes and things. I don't know where anything comes from.
Okay.
But one day I just felt to play with spheres and lines and angles and so on. And to me, that is really about my family.
Okay.
It's all this joy, all this energy, that the colorfulness of what my life is like.
Okay.
My family is terrific.
Okay. Okay.
I don't want to cry about it, but that's what they mean.
Crying is good, we decided. It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the joy of being here.
Yeah.
And then if I jump to the painting, my last two paintings, so I can leave the bouncing balls, and that's what they are. They're life. They're just the craziness, the fullness, the energy, the joy. And then the same colors used completely in a different style are the last two paintings. And I didn't realize that my palette was exactly the same. The blues, the pinks, the colors of a rainbow, of a prism of light breaking up. So the last one being incredible lightness of being, and the one before that, whoosh, is light and color juxtaposed. It's all there. It's this white light, when broken apart, becomes a rainbow. And what I was trying to do, but I didn't know that was what I was going to do, was just show light.
Okay. And they bounce. They sort of bounce when you look at them. Right?
They do. And it was right after the bouncing balls. So here we have these same colors applied in these thin, thin layers again, going way back to the botanicals, but now it's in oil.
The cycle of life. There it is.
There it is. I can't get away from myself.
Well, no, none of us can. Really. Thank you. Thank you so much, Corey. This was so interesting. I really appreciate your coming.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me and making me think about my own work like this and presenting it. It goes so fast.
It goes so fast.
Yeah,
And thank you for watching.